we'll do the live thing first. Like, hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. It's me, your host, Bigmark. Welcome to the show. If it's the first time listening, if you're a long time listener, welcome back. You know the drill. Hit that like button, hit the bell, get those notifications when a new video drops. If you're listening to the podcast, go and rate it. Give us as many stars as you'd like. Hopefully it's all of them. And if you want to support the podcast, check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/thebigmarkpod. Welcome, everybody. Good to see you again, even though I can't really see you. Nice to sit down with you, just a little quick little chat. But, I was kind of thinking today, when we're going to start the podcast, I was going to talk about something that I've been getting a little bit more interested in, even though this year there's been a lot of trouble with it and it's been really tough. I'm going to talk about golf today. I know not everyone's into it, and hey, I used to not always be into it, and guess what? Ford isn't into it right now. Our fearless leader, Douglas Ford, has shut down golf in Ontario, and I thought it was amazing to talk about it because, a lot of people were just starting to get into it, and unfortunately, we are the only province in the only country in the world that deems golf illegal right now due to the COVID restrictions, and it's a shame. And there was 25 million rounds of golf last year played, and not a single case. And there's all the tracking available completely with the tee time bookings and everything, and there wasn't a single case tied directly to golf courses. So it's a shame, and that's okay, because hopefully if you're listening to this, we're out of the lockdown restrictions in the future, and life is better. But we can dream, can't we? I kind of, like I said before, I wasn't always into golf, and I totally understand when people kind of go, oh man, golf boring, white man shit, like it's done. And that's how I used to feel too, and I think truly I was kind of against because golf is obviously synonymously tied with country clubs. Obviously golf and country clubs exist, and that's just how they roll. I guess they had a lot. I don't know. It's kind of a chicken and egg scenario there, Christian. What started first, the country club, and then they're like, oh, we got all this land, might as well start a golfing or whatever, right? Because I didn't want to go too much into like the history and the nitty gritty of golf, because there's a deep history. It's actually funny enough. I think it's in The Hobbit. J.R.R. Tolkien. There's a passage in the book where he talks about how golf was invented. That there was some battle, of course. How Tolkien is. There's always a battle with Tolkien. Like the king of the opposing force knocked this guy's head off, and it flew across flew across the battlefield and landed in a gopher hole, and thus the game of golf was born. So again, it's funny. It's one of those sports where, you look at sport, if you want to break down sport in an interesting way, basically what a game or a sport, what makes it interesting is you're taking an easy task and you're making it hard. So the easy task is all you're taking is putting this ball in the little hole. That's all you have to do. The hole's in the ground. You have to put it in there. But to make it harder, and Robin Williams has a great bit about this as well. Check that out, Robin Williams on golf. Hilarious stand-up bit. Anyway, so to make it harder, obviously, you put the ball 600 yards away, right? And then not only that, you have to hit it with a stick to get it in the hole. So you've basically taken something really easy and made it really hard, right? And there's rules and stuff involved too, right? But essentially, that's the basics of golf, but that's the breakdown of sport in general. Same with basketball. All you have to do is put a ball in the hoop, but now we're going to put the hoop 10 feet in the air, and then we're going to put 4 other guys on the court with you, and then 5 other guys on the other team, and we're going to make it hard. So again, essence of sport, just breaking down sport in a game. We can always get into that later, but so again, I guess I always lamented against the country club vibe when it comes to golf, and that's only such a small part of it, because not everyone has access to the country clubs, because some of them have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars membership fees, and that's whatever. But Obviously there's the entire sport of golf, right? So there's the entire, there's the entire athletics of it. There's everything. There's the mechanics to it. There's obviously fitness involved with it, because the professionals walk the courses. The traditional way of playing golf is walking. You don't take a cart everywhere, even though it's really nice to take a cart. But obviously you have to have some type of endurance to be able to do that, and then flexibility, because in the golf swing it helps to be flexible, and all this stuff. Now, another big barrier for me getting into golf, because I'm 6'7", I need extended clubs. I unfortunately can't just walk out there and rent a set and just have fun. And I've done this before. I have rented a set, and the only thing I could hit was the wedges. But hey, what can you do? It was fun. Actually, that was at my cousin's wedding. And Ingrid, if you're listening to this, congratulations. She just had her baby today. But it was at her wedding, and I was golfing with her husband-to-be at that point. And shout out Trevor. And I holed out from 90 yards. So I hit the ball from about 90 yards away, and it went in the hole. Wasn't a hole in one. I got it for par on a par 4. Don't go, wasn't for eagle or anything. Like, don't go crazy. But it was fun. And it's funny because that's the thing about golf. You do one little thing that's good, and then you're hooked for life. That's it. It just takes something like that. And you're like, oh man, I want to try and do that again. And then you spend the rest of your life trying to do it. But anyway, so I never really wanted, or I knew I couldn't do it. It's the same reason why I don't snowboard anymore. My feet got too big for the board. I would have had to get a custom wide board. And now I'm paying all this money for something that I'm not really into. So it stuck me away. And it's the same thing that really ultimately kept me away from golf, because a lot of my buddies are really into it. And, I went out to the range with them once and borrowed his clubs. Shout out Ben Murat. I went out and borrowed his clubs, and I freaking sucked. And he was like, man, you suck. I was like, yeah, true. 100%. Well, I could tell in his eye, but, anyway, and then, so again, I was discouraged from it. It wasn't for the lack of trying, but, then turned out, actually funny, another wedding thing, but shout out Lep. My buddy Lep was getting married, and I got invited to his bachelor party, and they were having a big golf thing. So I was like, I knew all these guys, a bunch of them are athletes. One guy's in the NHL. Like, these guys are legit. It's like, all right, I'm not going to go out there and just shit the absolute bed. I just didn't want to just look like an absolute plug, and mostly for myself, because it's frustrating when you can't. That's the worst thing about golf. When you really can't hit it, it's extremely frustrating. So I didn't want to just go out and spend 4 hours just getting pissed off. So I was out, and I went out and did the old Kijiji buy, bought like some really cheap clubs. I'm like, screw it. If I'm going to have to get these extended, I'm not going to spend a lot of money, because, for people who don't know, even like an entry level full set of irons, it's going to probably run you about $400 to $500. Plus all the other gear and the bag and the club and the driver and the putter. Like, you're looking at like probably dropping a G note if you're going to start out from scratch, from zero, at least a G. So I was like trying to avoid that at all costs. Grabbed a shitty set. I didn't know what I was looking for. Grabbed the first thing in the set I grabbed. And I walk into Golf Town, and I told the guy, I'm like, hey, yeah, I'd like to get these extended, regripped, the whole 9 yards. I wonder if that's a golf term, the whole 9 yards. Anyway, no, I think that's a tailor term, actually. I think it's like yardage of fabric, probably. Anyway, and the guy pulls out one of the clubs, and he's like, so you want to regrip these, eh? And he's a Scottish guy too, so it was very apropos. And he takes it, and he grabs the head of it, and like just twists the shaft and pulls the head of the club off, like right in front of me, like with no effort whatsoever. If I swung it, the thing would have definitely flew off on its own. And he's like, these are no good. And it was like $60, so I didn't like die, but it was kind of a waste of money. But, and he's like, hold on, I think I got something in the back. And he goes into the back, and these clubs were probably sitting there forever, because the clubs that he pulled out were these clubs, for everyone listening who knows, they're Ping i3 Pluses, so they're from Ping, really good company, from about 2003. And I bought these in I think 2017, 2018. Maybe. Anyway, and So they were like in really good shape, and they were already extended, already regripped. So it was awesome because I didn't have to put any extra money, and they were only like $110 for the whole iron set, which was amazing. So I lucked out like crazy, got these clubs, still have them today. Got a bunch of other clubs from a great website called golfavenue.ca. Shout out, they don't sponsor the podcast, but they might. Great website for used clubs, if anyone's looking. But again, got my act together, went out and had a great time with all the boys. Like, it wasn't stellar, but hit some decent shots. So again, like I said, it only takes a few shots, and then you're hooked for life. So I think from those times with those boys was definitely hooked. And like I said, obviously with my kinesiology background and all my sports background too, I totally understand like the attention to detail and the mechanics. I don't understand all the mechanics. I'm still trying to learn. I'm very self-taught, and of course all my buddies who have helped me along the way have given me tips, and it's been great, and it's all kind of floating around my head. But I've kind of come to the point where I definitely need like a little bit of coaching, just someone to show me, because it's funny. I had a teacher that I went to take bass lessons with. I've had coaches all my life for all different stuff, trainers in the gym. Why not get a golf pro to help me out, right? Like, there's no reason to think that I have to do this all on my own, and I'm coachable because of all that stuff. So I knew, but one of these days I'm going to go find one, hopefully past outside of COVID protocols, so we don't have to worry too much about that. And then, just tweak things a little bit, which would be really awesome. And, it's funny because, I didn't grow up, playing golf, right? Like, I grew up playing, basketball. I grew up swimming. I grew up playing a little soccer, playing a little football, obviously back in starting my high school days, but I never played a sport with a stick. I never played baseball. I never played hockey. I don't know how to skate. Terrible Canadian, but I'm sorry. And no tennis, no nothing. I just didn't do anything that required like a big swinging motion. So playing golf using a club is very, very foreign to me. So it's interesting when you look at some of these guys who like your Tiger Woods, who have started from like a little kid, right? You start these kids, and it goes for all sports, right? Where if you get these children so young, and Christian and I were kind of talking, funny enough, about this before, where we're getting to a point in sports, not to get too off topic, but we're getting to a point in sports where we're just getting to such a high pinnacle of athleticism. These kids have been playing sports since they were so young, and that's almost across the board. Like, kids that haven't been playing sports since they were young don't even really bother. Like, they kind of look at, I don't know, this is just my view of the thing, but if I was surrounded by kids that were so much more serious at something than I was, I wouldn't even bother trying to step into that arena, because I'm not even going to hold a candle to these guys. So why should I even start? Which is sad, and it's discouraging a lot of kids, and I think it should change. And again, that's my opinion about like the over specialization in sport. But that specialization has got us to where we are in all athletics, every sport, every major league, everything. And like, we look at our neighbors down south in America, what they've been doing, and I think they really, we've mentioned before how they kind of view sports as totally good. They don't see any negative aspects to sport. So that's why it's so widely spread and so popular, and everyone gives, athletes are held in such high regard, in North America for sure. But in the States, they're grassroots programs for everything, whether it's Pop Warner football or, really young baseball players, basketball. Like, they start everyone really young, and America could have even been, influenced by China, because China and Russia, they've been generationally finding kids and getting them. And like, again, we were talking about Yao Ming, where literally his parents were brought together. They were two of the tallest people in China, and they were brought together, and I think they were both basketball players, or at least his mom was, brought together to have Yao Ming. So they basically bred his parents, and then as soon as Yao was born, boom, he's in. I don't even know, I'm speaking out of turn. I don't know how what actually happens to the baby right away, but when they're very, very young, they're already in like a boarding school where all you do is play sports and learn. So he was born and raised as an athlete, and it's really interesting. Who knows if there was any pituitary, if they were messing with his pituitary gland to get him so tall, if it was just natural, they just knew that was going to happen, whether they were chemically altering him, giving him certain supplements and whatever. But again, like, we got one of the tallest players of all time in the NBA, and he was good. He wasn't necessarily just tall, because we had a lot of really tall guys in the NBA, but really they were unathletic, or they were lacking a certain substance. Obviously, you have your Shaquille O'Neals and your Arvydas Sabonis's and everything, but a lot of guys well over 7 feet, they can't really do much, just because, again, their body has grown so much, and they're usually relatively young guys that, like, we're talking, like, and I've even known guys, they've grown so fast. And Zach and I were talking about our buddy who grew like 6 inches in like a summer, more or less, or like in an off season kind of thing. And to get that tall, most of these guys also have pituitary gland issues or gigantism, which then has all these, which is basically gigantism, but they have all these associated issues with that. Yao Ming had awful feet. His foot was always injured. And again, you have such delicate bones in your foot as that grows so quickly, and then all the stress of jumping and running and sprinting in basketball, as you're growing, it must have been rough, right? And I can only say this as, a 6'7" guy who, as far as I know, my whole life, I've never had like an actual hormonal or pituitary gland issue. I'm just kind of genetically tall. But again, that's the thing, is that something about my genetics made my body create a little bit more human growth hormone or whatever, but then naturally it went away. So who knows, again, what they did with Yao. But a little bit of a tangent there, but that's what I was kind of saying about, you talk about people who have started playing a sport so young and then growing up in it, and then, the pros and cons of that. And of course, obviously, you have your greatest example is Tiger Woods. And his father, I don't know if anyone's watched, there was a great documentary about Tiger called Tiger. Pretty simple. Nice. And they went a lot into how his dad raised him, got him on the course really, really early, cut down clubs early so that he was already touching the clubs. And there'd be times where, when Tiger's a little kid, he's on the tee box and his father's just yakking away to the other guys, jingling change in his pocket. And it's really, it's common courtesy in golf that you're quiet when the player is swinging. And one of Tiger's dad's friends was with them in the foursome, and he goes, "Hey, yo, be quiet." I'm sorry. Do you mind looking up what Tiger Woods' dad's name is? I forget. It's like Clarence or something. It's cool. Anyway, because Tiger Woods' real name is Eldridge. But anyway, or Eldrick. Anyway, sorry, Tiger. Earl Woods, Mr. Woods. He'd be like, "Earl, man, you got to be quiet." And Earl goes, "Yo, man, don't teach me how to like coach my son. I'm trying to teach him, how to be, how to stay focused when all this stuff is going down." So really interesting, was really tough on Tiger, really, pushed him from a young age. And, and don't get me wrong, I started playing basketball when I was about 4 years old. I didn't start playing real hardcore basketball until I was probably about in grade 5. So, still fairly young, but, I'm talking Tiger Woods was out there as a really young kid. And, that was, again, that just one of my slight disadvantages playing the sport. But at this point, like I said, I'm coachable. Maybe I'm in a position to, to be able to be a little bit more more coachable in that aspect, right? Yeah, super cool. And like I said, it's funny with golf, kind of the more I get into it and stuff, it's really, you start to notice, there's obviously super cool super cool golf movies and stuff. You know, obviously everyone loves Happy Gilmore. There's a great movie called The Legend of Bagger Vance. It's actually one of those movies where I always thought it was really popular. I think I watched it in elementary school. You know, it's a classic like Catholic elementary school movie. No, it's not. There's no like it's PG, G rated more or less. Yeah, exactly. No one's clapping any cheeks on the chorus or anything. Just like happy in his happy place. But right, but super cool. Will Smith, Matt Damon. And it's a true story. I don't know if it's true, to be honest, but it's one of those like kind of historical fiction. I think it's based on a book, to be honest. I'm pretty sure, but it's like, you know, there's what's the one guy, anyway, one of the other golfers is a famous guy, but Matt Damon plays this character where he's kind of like a washed up character, and he has to play in this cool tournament that they have. And he kind of comes out of retirement. Really cool. But that was one of the movies where I watched and I was like, it really highlighted like the beauty of golf. Will Smith's character is actually the character who plays Matt Damon's caddy in the movie. And there's a scene where Will Smith is like at night walking the course, and he takes his shoes off and he's like, I want to feel like every blade of grass. I want to feel how it is. And he's like, as the day goes on, you know, as the sun moves in the sky, the blades of grass change. And like, you have to know that when you're like putting, because it's going to affect your ball a little bit. Like, it's like poetic the way it was written. Really, really good movie though, like I said. And, you know, Tin Cup, another tremendous movie. But again, it's like these things where you kind of look at it and you're like, man, golf is lame. Golf is, you know, all this whack stuff. But again, there's so much, there's beautiful athleticism for it, and that surrounds it, and so much. And then there's also the equipment behind it, which is really interesting. And I find that, you know, equipment's going to get you a certain place. There's so many innovations in this every year, and they're always expected to come out with some new technology in these drivers and these irons and all this stuff. And there's different levels of forgiveness, they call it, make it easier to hit. And then there's clubs that are definitely more made for like professionals. But again, it's like, you know, how the equipment's only going to be able to do so much for you, unless there's actually this club out there that you hit a button and it like hits the ball for you. It's like there's this little piston that comes out of the head and it like sends the ball. But there's, other than that, there's no technology out there that's really going to make you hit the ball much better, unless your mechanics are good, right? So it's but with really crappy equipment, you're not going to do anything at all. Like, look, in my case, a small improvement, i.e. extension in the clubs, an improvement in the equipment actually allowed me to play the game. So there's a certain level of equipment that does come into it. So I'm not saying at all that it's all a sham. It's obviously important, but it's one of those things where people are like, oh man, my swing sucks. I keep slicing it. I keep sucking. Time to get new clubs. This'll fix me. And again, I think the golf industry really plays on those guys. And, you know, there's obviously advancements in equipment that are going to help any level of golfer, but, yeah, just keep that in mind, especially if you're first getting into the game. Don't worry about getting the nicest stuff. Just worry about swinging your swing. And actually, one of my buddies, shout out Braden Kreiderman, he's actually a new father too. But he played golf, and I'm so sorry, Braden. I always forget this. I think he played at like the University of Oregon in North Carolina, though. Like University of Oregon, Raleigh or something like that. You know what I'm saying? So it was like one of those universities where he was at the one school, but it wasn't on the main campus. But obviously University of Oregon is where Phil Knight went, who's the president and CEO of Nike. So if you go to Oregon, you get every piece of your equipment is Nike, man. Like everything. He said every year a guy would roll in there with a binder, big thick binder, drop it on the table and be like, what do you want? And you could just go through it. I'm talking colorways, like hoodies, 4 different colorways, you know, golf bags, you know, shoes, shirts, you know, the whole 9 yards. And he's a private golf teacher now up in Huntsville, which is probably such a sweet gig. Like he goes to like people's cottages, man, and like gives them lessons like on their dock and shit. Like, what? Amazing. Super guy. So he's a great guy. He's buddies with all my, like, Cooper Schnurr, who's been on the podcast, and all my buddies up in Huntsville. Shout out Huntsville. He's always hanging out with us when we're up there when he has a chance. Oh my God, he's super busy. But he gave me one of the best tips ever, was trust your swing. You know, there's so much that you can probably change about your swing that's probably gonna change it, but confidence in your own swing, even though it's not perfect, is so much better. And like, you can look at a lot of guys that have homegrown swings, as they call them. They're basically not non-traditional looking swings. His most famous guy's name's Jim Furyk. He's got a really funny looking swing. If you're interested, go check that out. Really cool looking swing, actually. But he gets the job done. He's won PGA tournaments and stuff. I don't know if he won the Masters, but anyway, the guy's a stud. And Bubba Watson, I think, taught himself how to swing too. So there's a certain level of if it works, go with it. And like I said, I'm pretty much there. I need some tips on my driver swing, which sucks, but it's little tips. And that's the thing, is that you got to get yourself out there. And the hardest thing about golf, the only way you're going to get better is by hitting balls. And driving ranges are amazing for that, but the most important thing is actually going out and getting on the courses. And definitely one of my biggest qualms about golf is the expense. It's pretty expensive. Like, barring even having all the clubs and getting that taken care of, just playing rounds, even at a half decent course, it's pretty expensive. And, you know, now you gotta buy memberships and stuff if you want to get really serious. So I got beef with that, but what are you gonna do? There's still great budget courses that you can hit. Obviously, they're not going to be creme de la creme, but you can swing your swing, and it's going to put you in situations where you got to use your head, because golf is so mental. That all of that athleticism, all of that special stuff, and because you're in different aspects, and obviously it's outdoors, so the hills are rolling, there's twigs, and the possibilities are endless where that ball could land. So it's very variable. As far as what condition you're going to be in, what lie, as they call it, or where you're going to be on the course. So you have to be adaptable like that. But if you hit a bad shot and you start getting angry at yourself, you're just going to get your head out of it. And then there's so many small little adjustments you can make in your swing that if your mind is clouded by, you know, negative thoughts, all those little positive thoughts that you have to have in your swing start to get overshadowed by all those negative feelings, right? So it's pretty zen practice, to be honest, because golf, you don't really want to get really like the good shots, you don't want to get overly happy and be yay jumping, because the next shot might suck, and you don't want to be on this crazy roller coaster of emotions, because you'll exhaust yourself emotionally. So, you know, you look at Dustin Johnson, one of the best players out there. The guy's like a robot, right? Like, it's like nothing's going on upstairs, and it's like, that's why he's so good, because he's not thinking about like, oh, that last shot sucked. Like, you know, Coach K, coach of Duke University's basketball team for the past few years, 30 years or whatever. He says the most important play is the next. And it's the same thing with golf. The most important shot is your next shot. So even if you duffed it 10 yards, if you hit that next shot 150 to the green, you're golden. I think it was Jack. I don't even want to say who said it, but one of the best lines in golf is, you know, 3 bad shots and 1 good shot is still par, right? So, as long as you make it, and Tiger Woods, mentioned before, classic guy for getting himself into trouble because he takes risks. So, you know, high risk, high reward. But again, sometimes you're going to get yourself into trouble. But that's the mental aspect of it that I've come to love as well, especially from a sports psychology perspective, right? You know, actually in my sports psychology class in university, we sat and studied for about half a class. Like, I think the 2008 Masters, Rory McIlroy, historical breakdown. Like, he 8-putted or something crazy. Like, literally, he was like, had like a 6-foot putt, missed it, and then we watched him as a class. You can just watch him mentally spiral out, and he just keeps missing all these little short putts. And you just see him spiral out. And now he's one of the best guys on the tour. So he's overcome that, but that's one of the biggest things. It's probably one of the most popular clients for a sports psychologist is a professional golfer, because again, there's just so much going on that if you have if you have mental techniques that can help you keep that focus and keep that level-headedness through until you win the tournament, then go to town. But don't get too happy about your good shots and don't get too mad about your bad shots. So more or less, those are all the things I love about golf. And like I said, it's a sad day right now because, golf's been closed for so long, and it was a great thing for everyone last year. And I know it's not for everybody, and I know that there's still some weird connotations around it, and it is what it is. But there's many golfers out there, and don't make blanket statements about everyone. It's a cool thing. If Michael Jordan likes it, then it's probably pretty cool. So shout out MJ, but because we know he's listening. But of course, everyone we shout out is listening. But like I said, hopefully Ford lifts these bans soon. And man, I'm telling you, as a side note, Brave New World couldn't feel more realer because, in Brave New World, if anyone's read that, the leader's name was Ford, and everyone said like, oh, Ford and all that stuff. And it's too real for me right now, boys and girls. Anyway, like I said, there's so much more to golf than meets the eye. Check it out. So many more cool things. Great way to get out there and when you can. Everyone else who's listening from around the world, go and play some golf for me. Think about me when you're out there. And like I said, get into it because it's super cool. It's a way to get out and get some fresh air and have some fun, have some laughs, maybe even have a few beers. But like I said, hopefully it'll open up soon. But thanks for listening, everybody. Like I said, if you liked what you heard, you support the podcast, patreon.com/bigmarkpod. Hit that bell for the notifications. Rate us well, hopefully. And go out and play some golf. We love you all. Talk to you soon. Peace.